The famine was this catastrophe, really, to befall Ireland, where at least 1 million died of hunger and at least 1 million emigrated. So the population before the famine was around 8.5 million. About 70 years after the famine, the population of Ireland was less than 2.5 million. So it was just, it sort of just bled the country.
It was a devastating event, sociologically, linguistically, economically in Ireland, illustrated graphically and powerfully by this piece of music.
There was actually, during the famine, very little produced by those who were suffering the most. A, because they were quite weak. B, because they were essentially illiterate. If you were Catholic, you weren't allowed to go to school. And even in terms of the musical tradition, which is incredibly strong in Ireland, there were very few songs actually produced during that period. But there were 1 or 2 things that came out at that time, and actually I refer to them and build upon shards of those in The Hunger.
The very first material that we worked on for The Hunger is what became the backbone of the whole piece, which is the story of Asenath Nicholson.
Asenath Nicholson is a kind of extraordinary person. She was born in Vermont, and she had opened up a boarding house for poor and indigent people in New York City, and noticed that the greatest amount of them were coming from Ireland. So she took it upon herself to travel to Ireland to basically see what was up.
She is transformed by her experience in Ireland, and you see that transformation over the course of the piece, where she goes from being, I think, overwhelmed, confused, horrified by what she is seeing, to becoming a passionate advocate.
The Hunger for me has such beautiful vocal writing. He has the ability to write in this speech-like quality, which is, it just gets through the truth and the purity of what Asenath is trying to convey and say to people.
In small streams, in different places.
I had previously collaborated with this wonderful sean-nós singer. And sean-nós means old style, but it's a type of unaccompanied vocal singing that's unique to Ireland. And his name is Lionáird.
The other character on stage in The Hunger is unnamed, and he's played by Lionáird, and it's kind of, Iarla is in the piece sort of the voice of the Irish people.
In a sense, although I'm alive, as it were, I sometimes think perhaps I'm not. I'm rather more a memory, which is apt. The 1 million or so people who perished, and the others who followed then, who left and died subsequently, they were all native speakers. The Irish language never really recovered. The piece is also full of sort of conflict, of voices from the past trying to be understood, failing to be understood, and then Asenath Nicholson's very powerful and sometimes helicopter view, and sometimes very direct human perspective of the horrific events.
Her vocal part becomes more and more influenced by the sean-nós type of vocal treatment, and in a way that's a way of carrying some of that meaning, that she's becoming more empathetic.
The way that the music ebbs and flows and surges forward and shifts through harmonic spaces is really, it's gorgeous, and it's unique to Donnacha's music, and it's extremely hard.
My background is not in Western art music, and so I come from an oral tradition exclusively. And so for me it's kind of electrifying to be performing with anybody else, because my song tradition is fundamentally expressed as a solo idiom with no accompaniment.
An interesting experience for us in doing The Hunger is this meeting of musical worlds between the classically trained musicians in alarmal sound and Iarla, who comes from a totally different tradition.
The great thing about playing this piece is once it actually gets going, it just goes. And it's like one big breath. It's really fulfilling to play, because Donnacha is very specific. So every note has a purpose. It's not just there. Nothing is just filler. Everything is always going somewhere. So it's just a pleasure to play.
Expresses the whole of my voice. I am singing from a bottom G right the way up to a C sharp. It's a wonderful achievement when it just clicks in and everything lines up just so. It's perfect.
When I think of this piece, it's not just really about the Irish famine, it's about any kind of unfolding catastrophe that's complicated by political ideas of the other. The Irish were very much the other in the imagination of the British at this time. This happens throughout the world, still to this day. We don't have to look very hard for parallels, I'm afraid.